Hey, welcome back to another episode of Hipster Codes. This is Hipster GW. Last week, what we went over was using binds within your UI. So, for example, you see we have the $10 here that you can go and then pick up money with, and whenever you pick up money, you see this $15. You see it gets added instantly. Now, this is using a bind within the UI, within the Unreal Engine UI capability. I forget what it's called, the UI functionality. You see we go over here. We have our number. Our number has a bind function. Within this function, essentially every tick, it checks to see how much money is in the wallet. It properly formats the dollar amount to make sure it looks really good, and then it returns the text so that you can actually see the proper amount on screen. Now, again, last week I went over that this is a super simple function. It's not very expensive, so it's not the worst thing in the world if you end up using it on tick. However, because our dollar amount within our wallet isn't really changing every frame, you can make this much more efficient, and it's really a good practice to do so. So instead, whenever we click the E button here, and you see we actually get the money going into our wallet, we can trigger what's known as an event dispatch that we can have our UI listen for, and then only run the function only when our wallet number changes. I said that in a very weird order of words, but hopefully you get the gist of it. So what happens is we have a money stack blueprint here. You don't really need to know the details of this. I think I briefly went over it in a previous video, but these are their own classes. They're called money stacks. They have a money amount here. Whenever you get interacted with, whenever you click the E button and you're looking at those, it casts to the first person character. Don't judge me for casting, okay? All right, get off my back. All right, but I know casting isn't perfect, but hey, it gets the job done here, and it was quick and easy. Just for me to teach a lesson earlier. So that's what's happening. We call a function on it where we're adding the money. We add in the money amount, then we destroy the actor. Here in the first person character, our function essentially goes and adds the money that we currently had in the wallet with the money that we're getting in from that money stack. It sets the new value, and then it returns. What we can do is add in what's known as an event dispatcher here. I'm not going to do a whole video on like really going in depth into event dispatchers, but so if you want one of those, let me know in the comments, but there's plenty of examples. I just want to show how you can use it here specifically with UI HUDs. We'll add an event dispatcher. Now, my way that I go about these is I give the name, whatever it is, and then I do _dispatch just because it helps my brain understand that this is an event dispatch. The event dispatch you want to call, now there's going to be a listener and a caller. So you're going to have the UI HUD wants to know when the wallet changes on the first person character, which means that the dispatch is going to be called. We're going to create the dispatch in the first person character, and it's going to be called within the first person character. The HUD element, the HUD widget blueprint, is going to listen for that call. So I'm going to have it say be named money change. And again, I call it _dispatch just so that I know. We don't have any values. Oh no, we actually could add in a value here. Off the top of my head, I realized that you can, I didn't know this before because not a lot of event dispatch videos go over this, but if you call this here, you can actually have an input. So you see we have an input here. It's in a different location. This is why it took me forever to realize that you could do this. It's in a different location because there's no like variables down here. Oh, maybe there is. Maybe it's completely new and maybe I'm a silly goose. That's definitely true, but let's just do new wallet as the input. We're going to pass it through before we return this function. We have to make sure that the execute nodes are connected. New param. I messed that up. New wallet. Why is it new param? Let's refresh. Okay. There we go. Now it should work. So essentially it's going to call this event dispatch, and then anything in the entire game can listen for whenever this event dispatch goes off. And then it's technically not running on tick. I don't know exactly how it works, but there's some sort of register within the low-level code that whenever this runs, then another blueprint can then understand. It like hears that this was called. But in order to bind this, we need to have a reference to the first person character. So in our HUD, Last week I showed that we do cast the first person character again. I know I'm casting a lot, but like I said, don't judge me. Off of the reference here, we are going to bind to, or bind event to, and then we can look for it. Why is it not showing up? Oh yeah, bind event to money change dispatch. Now we can have either a function or an event. Let's go ahead and do a function. So we have this function here that we could utilize. No, actually, let's do an event. Let's go here. We'll create a new event. Yeah, let's do add custom events. And then you see, because we had an input, you need to make sure that there's the same input here for your custom event node. And I didn't change the name, so let's do update wallet amount. Something like that is fine. Then we have the new wallet amount, which is the total. So you can see here we have this. We don't need this anymore because we're getting the input directly from the event dispatch. So we actually don't need this function anymore. But we can copy the format text node stuff. This is just for my little funky setup here. So the point of the video isn't to show you doing format text nodes, so I can explain it in a future video. It's basically to show how we can have the event dispatch work. So we have this new text that is going to update our wallet text. I named it wallet amount. So we're going to go find our wallet amount. We're going to do set text. And then the set text is going to come from this. We don't need the input there. We need the new wallet information going into the to text. It's going to format the text, and then we're going to update the text. So you can see, here's the order of events. I think it's going to work first try. Let's make sure that I didn't make any bugs. Oh, wait. No, hold on. I forgot to do one thing. We need to turn off the binding. Oh yeah, the problem is we need to run this function once. We need to run this function exactly once on the very first frame. Here, I'm not going to waste time turning this into a function. That would probably be a better way to go about it. But instead what we'll do is we will get the wallet. I'm just going to copy and paste everything. So again, this is not the most efficient way to go about it. You want to turn this into a function, but that's just going to take longer, and the video is going on longer than I anticipated. So we're going to do this. We're going to get the wallet. We're going to plug this in. Look at the upsetty spaghetti nodes here. It is not very efficient, but it's going to get the job done. So right off the bat, you can tell we have $10 on our wallet. And now it's still updating, so the functionality looks exactly the same. However, it's only being run whenever our event dispatch is being called. Order of events. We go up to the money stack. We interact with it. It calls the add money function within the first person character. The first person character then has the add money function, adds the money, then calls the dispatch. The HUD on begin play is listening for this dispatch. Whenever this dispatch gets called, this is what this bind event to dispatch is doing. Whenever this dispatch gets called, this event gets run, and then we set the text. So if we were to add a print string here, you saw last week we had wallet updated. We did a print string on our bind, and it ran every frame. However, you can see now it's only happening 4 times. It happened only whenever we interacted with the money stack. So hopefully that's helpful. That's a way that you can go about actually making your UI more efficient. Another way that we could go about it is doing a timer. So the example that I showed was the Witcher 3. Whenever you're riding a horse, I showed this last week, the distance to whatever your destination is doesn't update every frame. maybe they have some sort of event listener. I think most likely instead what they have is a timer that runs every third of a second or every half of a second or something like that. So maybe I'll show that in a future video. Maybe I'll show that next week, because it's another way that you could go about showing how to update your UI without doing it every frame. But one way is to do it with event listener. So hopefully you learned something, and we'll see you in the next video.